Under a Cold Fusion scenario, it starts off the same. The browser says, hey, can I request something? The server says, yeah, I think I got that. Let me check. The server says, wait a minute. This is a CFM page. I'm going to have to hand this off to Cold Fusion. Cold Fusion does some stuff. Right? It finishes up. It sends the page back to the server. The server then takes the page and lets the browser know, I've got all your stuff together. All right? I'm going to send this back to you. And the browser says, I'll display it. In this instance, it's a dynamic LHWH page because stuff happened. All right? What's that about? Right? Cold Fusion is the middleware. Cold Fusion sits in the middle of that process. Before Cold Fusion, that process was very A, B, B, A. All right? Cold Fusion is C. A, B, C, C, B, A. All right? Cold Fusion sits in the middle. All of these technologies are technically middleware. ASP, PHP, Cold Fusion. They're all essentially the same thing. They all work in exactly the same way that I just described. There's no difference between them all. The only difference is implementation. One is ASP, one is Cold Fusion, one is PSP. That's it. So when Cold Fusion does stuff, what kind of stuff can it do? All right? It can read and write to and from data sources. Now notice I used the word sources here. I didn't use the word bases. All right? I didn't use database, I used data source. Cold Fusion allows for different sources for the data. All right? A lot of us tend to think that Cold Fusion is pulling stuff from a database. It is, but not necessarily. It can pull stuff from an Excel file. It can pull stuff from a text file. It can pull stuff from any other kind of a CSV file. All right? Any kind of, it can pull from an XML file. It can pull from an RSS feed. All right? Anything that is a source for data, Cold Fusion can pull from, manipulate, and then send back and do something with. All right? That's why the term data sources is important, and it's not just databases. Now think about this. Why this is important is because your clients don't all have databases, and they don't all have the same databases. If they all had the same databases, we would be limited by whatever database we serve. The databases we can pull from are Oracle, SQL, Access, FileMaker Pro. The data sources we can pull from are Excel, CVS, Spreadsheet, OpenOffice.org spreadsheets. You know, we can pull from different data sources. So we're not limited to a database. When the discussion is, I have this in this file format, that's okay. Cold Fusion can pull from it. That doesn't have to be any kind of barrier for communication or any kind of barrier for development in any kind of discussion with any of our clients. Because if the data is in some format, we can get it out and do something with it and display it or manipulate it or do whatever we're going to do. And the same goes for reading and writing to and from. So we can write to a spreadsheet. We can write to an XML file. We can write to another kind of database from one kind of database. We can read from an Access database and write to a FileMaker database, right? We can read and write from different data sources very heterogeneously. We don't have to, we're not limited by one type of data that we can get from it. We can process form input, okay? We can take form data and do something with it. We can insert it into a database, or we could send it in an email. We can provide interfaces for clients to input form data either in an admin section or in a public front-end section, and the form data doesn't have to be in just an HTML form. It can be in a Flash form, it can be in any other kind of form format, and we can pull that data in and do something with it. All right? We can send emails. We can send and receive emails. We can manipulate emails. We can actually add attachments to emails. We can build files and attach them to emails and send them to people. You know, we can do a lot with emails. We can actually receive emails and process emails with Cold Fusion. Cold Fusion has complete email capabilities. It has IMAP capabilities. It has POP3 capabilities. It can connect to a Google Mail account. It can write to a Google Mail account. It can read from a Yahoo Mail account. It can read from your LHWH email account. It can pull your new mail in. It can read from any folder in your IMAP folder and display the contents of that email folder. It can do all kinds of email functions built right into Cold Fusion. Right? It can manipulate images. It can pull images from a directory, and it can manipulate images. It can do watermarking. It can do watermarking on images. It can put text over top of an image. It can shrink an image. It can crop an image. It can resize an image. It can change the format of an image from a JPEG to a GIF file to a TIFF file. It supports multiple image types. It can convert between different types, all built into Cold Fusion. It can create charts and graphs. Now this is something that we haven't done a lot of yet, but this is a very powerful feature. This was really the backbone of our dashboard idea for the Perl campaigns that we were going to do. We can take data in a database and chart it and graph it dynamically. We can do it on the fly. So as data is coming into a database, you can refresh a chart or a graph, and the pie chart can be completely refreshed every time new data is entered into the chart. It supports 3D charts, bar charts, pie charts. It supports line graphs. It supports all kinds of charting features dynamically. It can pull from those multiple data sources and then chart and graph that data. It can take data in an Excel spreadsheet and on the fly generate pie charts. It can on the fly generate bar charts, 3D bar charts. It can create bar charts that are images that can be saved, or it can create bar charts that are flash files that are dynamic, that shrink and grow and are animated and have rollovers, so that when you click on a piece of a pie, it tells you what the value of that pie is. You know, it has those features built right into Cold Fusion. And it also does tons of other things. There's all kinds of other things that other people have added on to Cold Fusion to allow Cold Fusion to do. And we'll go through some of that cool stuff too. All right. What does all of that mean? That means that we're building web applications. No, really. We're building web applications. We're building full-featured web applications. It's an application that's accessed via a web browser over a network, such as an internet or an intranet. That's what I just described. The functions that I just described with my little demonstration there was a web application. The browser does something. A great example of a web application is Gmail. You know, Google Mail, Google Docs, Google Maps. These are all web applications. You've seen our webmail is a web application. You know, it goes off to the server, requests something, comes back, does something, and displays it to you. And it takes form input. And if you think of your webmail entrance, your webmail is nothing more than a series of forms that talk back and forth to the database. When you compose a new mail, that's just a form that takes your who you're sending it to, where it's coming from, what the body copy is, and then there's a submit button down at the bottom that lets you send your email. That's a standard form. That's the same forms that we use in all of our websites. It just takes that information, puts it in an email, and sends it off. That's a web application. These are applications that are accessed over the web, and these are the things that Cold Fusion can do. All right.